And now we will just have that few second delay that Facebook is so famous for as we get everything set up. We're so excited to host you, all our mighty mystery fans, waiting to meet you. And we are live. Welcome, mighty mystery fans. I'm sorry we're running a few minutes late today. Facebook was being difficult, but we are here now, and I am thrilled to host Rose Carlyle, author of The Girl in the Mirror, all the way from New Zealand. Rose, welcome. Tell us about your book.
Thank you, Sarah. It's really lovely to be here. So my book, The Girl in the Mirror, is a thriller that poses a question, which is, if you had the opportunity to step into somebody else's life, maybe a life that seems far more glamorous than your own, would you take it? So it follows the story of twin sisters, Iris and Summer has always seemed to have it all. She's confident and self-assured. Iris just doesn't seem to be able to match her, even though they're identical. And they set off on a yacht journey, and a lot of strange things happen along the way.
Well, I know I was immediately in, because who doesn't love twin sisters? I know I do. As we were tweeting on Twitter yesterday, I spent many, many years, an embarrassingly long number of years, wishing, yearning desperately to be a twin. So as soon as I saw this was a tale of twins, I had to have it, and I had to have you on the show. So we're so excited to have you. I just want to welcome everyone on Facebook. Yay, welcome. We're so excited you're here. If you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, here's how it works. This is your time with this author. You can ask her anything about her writing, about her book, about New Zealand. This is your time. So go ahead and answer asking any questions that you have in the comments. My partner in crime, pun intended, my fellow author and friend, Margaret Pernard, is running things over on Facebook. So we're so excited to host Rose today. And while you're thinking of your questions, because I know it always takes me a minute, Rose, tell us how long it took you to write this book.
It really didn't take very long, because I just felt like this story was pouring out of me. It was my sister and I came up with the idea together over lunch one day when we discovered that we both wanted to write a novel about identical twins. So that was a strange moment when we discovered that we had very similar ideas, but when we put them together, things just sparkled. We were so excited about the story that emerged. And so that was summer, and I remember it was Midwinter's Day that I finished writing the story. So it was really only about 6 months for that first draft. There's been a lot of editing since then, but it was really helpful that I always knew where this story was going, even though for a lot of the time that I was writing it, I was kidding myself that that was not where it was going to end up.
Oh my gosh, I feel like all of us authors kid ourselves about that very thing at some point. And I want to hear so much more about that, but I have to just share a few words of praise that this book has earned. Written with the chilling, twisty suspense of the wife between us and something in the water. The Girl in the Mirror is a seductive thriller about greed, lust, secrets, and deadly lies involving identical twin sisters. Liv Constantine, who's one of our Blaze authors, internationally best-selling author of The Last Mrs. Parish and The Wife Stalker, calls it riveting from the first page with a final mind-blowing twist that you will never see coming. Wow. So how did you come up with that final mind-blowing twist that we will never see coming?
It's a little bit difficult to talk about it, obviously, without feeling it. But yeah, my sister and I came up with it together, really. It was very strange. It was as though we were finishing each other's sentences. And Maddie and I are not twins. We don't usually have the same idea at the same time. In fact, we're very different. And I think when I was tweeting you about always wishing I had a twin, it's partly because I do have a sister, but we were so different that people wouldn't even believe we were related. So it came up in a conversation, and we were really excited and sort of shouting, and what if this happened, and what if that happened? And ever since then, we knew that that was going to be the ending, even though as I was writing, I was dreaming of probably about 12 other possible endings. And I kind of wished I could go back and write the same novel 12 times to explore all of those possible endings.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I get overwhelmed by sort of I always say to my husband, who's a math and science nerd, the thing that I both love and loathe about writing is there is no right answer. You don't know when you've reached it. There's infinite possibilities, and I find that overwhelming. Like, so for I hear you say that, you have you can't stop thinking about the 12 possible other endings. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel that, because I never know, which one to go with, because there's so many possibilities and none of them are the one, the answer. So I'm so glad to hear that you that you think about that and struggle with that as well.
Well, I think that there is a best answer, isn't there? But sometimes you know it from the start, and sometimes you have to struggle with it for a very long time. A friend of mine actually wrote one answer to her book, and her critique partner persuaded her, no, you've got to write the other one, and that's what she did. So sometimes we need someone else to tell us that no, that ending is not the right one. But we know deep down. I think we know really deep down. And with this one, I was lucky that I knew from the start. I just tried to avoid it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I hear you. Again, I just want to welcome everybody on Facebook. Questions already pouring in. Catherine, one of our top community members. Hey, Catherine, always has the best questions. She says, what was the starting point for this book, that first idea that got you going?
Well, it was actually that somewhat raunchy, maybe disturbing scene in the middle of the book. That was really the first thing that my sister and I started talking about, is what is really going on in that scene. And the more we talked about it, the more we thought that no two people on planet Earth are going to agree about what's happening, whether they think it's terrible or some people find it funny. It's sort of dealt with lightheartedly, but it does introduce some really disturbing ideas. And that scene ended up being right in the middle of the book, which was interesting because it feels as though we built backwards to get the start of the book, and then we built forwards to see what the consequences were of that behavior. I think you'll agree, it's some very bad behavior on some people's parts in that scene.
Well, we love deliciously bad behavior here on Mighty Mystery Series. Nothing is tastier than that, am I right? Gail is saying, hi, Gail. Welcome, one of our top community members as well. Hi, Anissa. Hi, Andrea, Raquel. Everybody's saying hi. Welcome. And Rachel, so great to have you all. Catherine, again, asking, had you written with a partner before, or was this the first such book? Oh, Catherine, love it. I want to know that as well. Tell us. Do you usually work with a critique partner? Do you usually bounce things off your sister?
Well, this is my debut, so I'm still figuring out how to do this. But Maddie and I were in the process of writing novels when we got together on that fateful day. It was almost exactly 3 years ago, actually. And we were both a bit stuck for various reasons. We had discovered that writing a novel is a lot harder than you think it is. And we'd been meeting up and comparing notes, but we'd really got to the point where we were both stuck. And I wasn't intending to write in such close partnership with Maddie, but it was the fact that we came up with the idea together. And I felt like I was lurching more towards writing a commercial book. So my first attempt at writing had been quite literary, and I knew that Maddie came from the other end of the spectrum. So I thought it was quite interesting to work with her like this. But I've continued to work with her because I'm writing a second book, of course.
I love that. And I knew that this was your debut because Brittany had told me that, and I had read it, but I think I got distracted when I saw the two covers. But now, of course, I realized that's the American cover and the New Zealand cover behind you, right behind you. So I was like, I knew.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, there's two different books back there.
Yeah, so this one's been on sale in Australia and New Zealand for 2 months now. It's actually been at #1 in New Zealand, which was incredibly exciting. And at the time that it came out, we had no lockdown in New Zealand, so I was actually able to have a launch, which was, I think I said to you, I feel like the only author in the world who's been able to have a full launch, like in the pre-COVID days. And then after that, we ended up locking down again because we had a small cluster emerge in Auckland. But it's not really affected book sales. If anything, it's helped them. So the book's been out now for a while and is doing really well. So it's just really exciting to be joining America into the list of countries where you can buy The Girl in the Mirror.
Yay! Well, we're so good to have you stateside. Catherine saying congrats on the #1 status. Couldn't agree more. And Publishers Weekly here in the US raving that this is an assured debut. The intricate plot builds to a strong finale. Psychological thriller fans are in for a treat. Perfect, just in time for Halloween. Get that treat, the treat on the page. AJ Finn, #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Woman in the Window, raving ferociously entertaining, a novel like a triathlon, part evil twin thriller, part how done it, not who done it, how done it, or did she do it, part juicy family drama, drop knives out and Double Indemnity into the blender, shake some dead calm over the froth, power it on, and you've got a cocktail like The Girl in the Mirror, fresh, flavorful, and utterly intoxicating. Wow. What a fantastic, exciting review from AJ Finn. Liv Constantine, again, one of our Blaze authors, saying riveting from the first page to the last. Absolutely love that. Karen Dion, who's been on the show, says that The Girl in the Mirror left her gobsmacked with this exotic setting, incredibly drawn characters, masterfully intricate plot, and an ending I absolutely did not see coming. You have earned incredible praise with this book. So tell us, what's your practice like? Do you rise with the sun? Do you flow to your desk? Do the words just pour out of you? Or are you sort of like hard scrabbling Hemingway across the desert, like dragging every word forth?
That's a great question. Because when I started writing this book, it was a terrible time to start writing a novel. So I was recently divorced and I had 4 teenagers living in the house with me. I was the single mother to 4 teenagers, 3 boys and a girl, and I had to go back into the workforce for the first time after a long time as a stay-at-home mum, which was quite a shock to the system.
Yes.
So this novel got written very early in the morning before work and often before the teenagers woke up. So it's not so much rising with the sun as rising before the sun. Luckily, I am a morning person, and despite all of that, it wasn't a chore to write. I mean, if it had been a chore, there's no way that it would have happened, because all I remember about that year is being so tired all the time. But this writing was a little bit of each day that was for me. So I didn't struggle with the writing. The writing was the easy part. The rest of my life was hard.
Oh, wow. Rose, what an incredible testament to you, going through a divorce, which is, one of the psychologists always say, one of the 3 most unsettling shocks to the system, one of the most traumatic events that a human can withstand, actually. With 4 children, a single mother re-entering the workforce, I mean, you certainly had your work cut out for you. And then in the midst of all of that upheaval in your life and all of that stress, to produce your first book, what an incredible accomplishment. Now I'm even more blown away and impressed. Wow, just congratulations. And I think that we should all just take a moment to honor you, and that, because that's really, really incredible. So now I love it even more. That's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Andrea would like to know, do you know twins? Did you have to do a lot of research? Andrea, you read my mind because I love me some twins. Tell us about the twin stuff.
I guess we've all known twins throughout our lives. I've got twin uncles and twin aunties. I've got a good friend who's the mother of twins, and I would interrogate her at times about how her daughters behaved. But I mean, these twins are not based on any particular set of twins, because that would be a worry, wouldn't it? I think we'd be concerned if we knew a real life Iris and Summer. We might need to be making some phone calls to some welfare authorities. So although I did draw on my real life knowledge of twins, I always felt like that needed to be twisted and changed in order for it to fit into the novel.
Yes, absolutely. And I do know some twins, and I am twin obsessed, but I saw an article in People magazine that I wasted absolutely no time in sharing to social media, where 2 identical twin sisters married 2 identical twin brothers on International Twin Day in Twinsville, Ohio. And they live together. The 2 couples live together. The 4 of them live together. And now the 2 twins are both pregnant, but not with twins. So that was sort of the twin story I'd ever heard. But what was interesting to me about these twins is they are mirror twins, which I had not heard of. So so one actually has her organs on her right side of her body, like, and her heart even on her right side of her body, and the other one has, you know, it in the left, the regular place. I had never heard of mirror twins.
So I actually had heard of that because I remember as a very young child reading about conjoined twins and discovering that if you're nearly about to become conjoined twins and you just split into two eggs a little bit earlier than conjoined twins do, then you end up with this mirroring effect. It's as though the body already decided which was its right side and which was its left side, and then the egg split into twins. And I remembered that they were called mirror twins, obviously, at a couple of days after my sister and I had come up with the whole plot of the book. And we had come up with the title, The Girl in the Mirror. So it seemed like, well, these twins have to be mirror twins. But I also quite liked the fact that one of these twins does feel as though she's the wrong twin. Yeah. There's something not right about her, and she, you know, they didn't know she was coming. They didn't have a name ready for her when she was born. And then she turns out to be the one who's the wrong way round. So that's always simmering beneath the surface in terms of how she feels about herself.
Yeah, that was a really nice plot device, I thought, for all the reasons you said. But it was funny because I actually had to look it up. I didn't even know that was a thing, and that was a thing that happened right before. If the egg didn't split, that they would have been conjoined. It's so interesting.
I have actually heard from 2 readers here in New Zealand who have that organ reversal, who have their hearts on the right hand side of their body, and they think in both cases that their mother maybe lost the twin early in the pregnancy, and that's why they don't have a twin. But I've also seen on social media a reader commenting that she's the mother of mirror twins, so she's really keen to read the book.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Gail saying that this cover reminds her of AJ Finn's book. Tell us the story of this cover. Were you actively involved in the choosing of it, the creation of it? Did you love it as soon as you saw it?
I did absolutely love it as soon as I saw it. So no, I had no involvement with my covers, and my Australian and New Zealand cover is completely different. And then I've got a UK cover as well, which is almost seems to draw on elements of both. But I just absolutely adored that cover when I saw it, because it seems so appropriate that the girl is mirrored, that there is a mirror image of her. But it's a mirror in the water, because the ocean is such an important part of this story too, and the idea of being above the surface of the sea or below the surface of the sea is a sort of key idea that I think contributes to the suspenseful feeling. I will say though about my Australian and New Zealand,
hold it up, Rose, let's see it.
That I wondered why there was only one girl on the front. So you can just sort of, it's quite hard to see on the screen, but her face is kind of off camera, and then this is her hair. And I wondered why there was only one girl on the front cover, but it turns out that the mirror twin is on the back cover.
Ooh.
So that's how the Australian and New Zealand cover designers conveyed the idea of twins, whereas the American one, obviously, she's above and below.
Exactly. Usually it's funny because I love to see how the different countries, you know, the different cultural markets interpret the book. I have to say I do love the American one, just because the ocean and the, you know, plays such a big part in your book. And so I love how they brought that in. It is absolutely gorgeous. Catherine wants to know. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say about the ocean that I did a real life yacht trip from Thailand to the Seychelles in 2014 with my husband at the time and our kids. And so all of the places that I visited in The Girl in the Mirror are places that I've been to in real life. And I think one of the things I loved about writing when I was getting up early in the morning and writing in the dark was that I was able to visit places in my head that I had no possibility of returning to in real life, which of course is something that we all relate to in 2020 when travel is so difficult. That, right. You know, the best way to travel, I think, in 2020 is to sit in an armchair and read a book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always say that the only thing I can read in 2020 is mysteries and thrillers. Good thing that's my favorite genre anyway, but I need something. My attention span has shrunk because I think I'm so anxious about the world in general, and I'm very anxious about what's going on. So the only thing that really holds my attention is mysteries and thrillers. And so I totally agree. Just, sitting at home with a good book and a cup of tea and possibly a puppy, in my case, is what's going to get me through this. We have some good questions here. Catherine's saying she agrees it's a great cover. She'd like to know, have you been able to write during the pandemic? How has the experience of writing now been? Is it an escape or is it stressful? Oh, good question as always, Catherine.
Well, I sort of have to right now because my second novel is expected. So I've been working on that this year, and it has been difficult, because my kids are older now, but I've still had the younger two locked down with me at home. And I have also had to do that thing that you discover when you're onto your second novel, that you have to switch back to your first one, do a edits, come back to the second. So yeah, it has definitely been difficult. It's hard to get the creative juices flowing. And I think, again, it was quite fortunate that I knew that I had a deadline.
Yeah. How do you push through when you're feeling creatively blocked? I'm asking for a friend, and the friend is me.
I quite like the attitude that there's no such thing as writer's block, or that if you feel that you've got writer's block, it's actually your friend. It's telling you that something's not right about your writing and it's time to learn. I heard the author Chris Cleave say once that if we didn't have writer's block, we'd never get any better. We'd just write and write and write, and it could all be just nonsense or boring. But the writer's block is when we realize that we need to improve what we write. And so it's actually a really good thing, and we should welcome it, even if it doesn't always feel that way.
Oh, I like that.
It's completely not real, but it's not an excuse. You can't say, I've got writer's block, I'm just going to stop trying. It's actually a reason to try harder.
Oh, I love that. Okay. I feel you, Rose. Andrea would like to know, do you sail? Ooh, good question. Yeah, because there is so much about boats. You must know a lot about boats, or you must be really good at research.
Yeah, well, I had no time for research when I was writing. So yeah, that trip that I did across the Indian Ocean was a sailing trip. And it was just my husband at the time and me and our kids on board. And so we were in complete control of the yacht. And in fact, we ended up hand steering it for quite a lot of that trip because our autopilot broke. And so even our oldest two boys, Ben and Moses, who were 12 and 14 at the time, took solo watches on that boat, which is why in the book I have the father say, I'm going to bed, you girls sail the boat, to his teenage daughters, because we actually did do that. And it seems incredible now, but at the time they were really up to it. They were really responsible, and we knew that it would make us safer if they took a watch so that we could actually get some rest, because fatigue is really dangerous on a boat. So all of that is brought in this novel, where Iris is struggling with her fatigue on the yacht journey, and there's a lot more going on as well.
Yeah. Wait, I'm still sort of mind blown that you just sailed that boat by yourself across the Indian Ocean. How many days were you at sea?
So we didn't do it like in the book. So in the book, it's a non-stop voyage, which would take 2 or 3 weeks, whereas we stopped en route in places like the Maldives and India and Sri Lanka. And in fact, we didn't intend to go to the Seychelles, but the broken autopilot was what caused us to decide to stop there, because it was a stop en route. Our original destination was Madagascar. We also stopped at an uninhabited island in the middle of the Indian Ocean and spent a month living there like Robinson Crusoe. So yeah, a few people have said to me, why don't you just write the true story of what you did instead of making up a story?
Oh my gosh. So you just lived on this island, you just sailed up to the shore and just went ashore? Just
yeah, you get a permit to go there because it's operated by the British government, but it's completely uninhabited. It's not just an island, it's a whole archipelago, but there are certain places where there's lagoons that you can go into and anchor your yacht and then live in, tropical paradise, live in the wilderness. In fact, when we were there, another boat turned up from Canada, and there was a lovely family on board with 3 teenagers as well. And the 2 daughters were aspiring chefs. So we lived on a desert island with the best food I've ever eaten in my life. It's quite a ridiculous story, really. People would send us messages via sat phone saying, are you running out of canned food yet? And I would be laughing, saying, we're not eating canned food, we're getting the gourmet section of the Martha Stewart cookbook. And it's not even, we're not even cooking it ourselves. We've got visiting chefs from the boat next door.
God, that's crazy. This is the craziest thing I've heard, maybe all COVID, like, maybe since March. And there's been a lot of crazy. What did you eat? Did you hunt and fish your own food? I mean, we're just out there like catching dinner?
There's a lot of fishing when you're living somewhere like that. It's a marine reserve, so the fishing is amazing. You just have to drop the line in and something comes up. In fact, the only problem is, I mean, I'm a bit concerned that I already sound crazy, but all of this is true, not like my story, that you have to wind in the fish really fast because there are so many sharks out there that if you're not quick enough, you'll only get half a fish. But yeah, there's a lot, and there's coconuts on the land. And I mean, you do bring a lot of food with you, obviously. If you want to use your Martha Stewart cookbook, you have to have your flour and your sugar and your eggs.
Right. Oh my God, wow. Rose, this is not the interview I was expecting today, but I'm loving every juicy second. Oh my gosh. So one of our other Mighty Mystery guests, Glenn Eric Hamilton, grew up on a boat. Like, he didn't have a house, like his family just had the boat. So he grew up just, in a stateroom on a boat in a harbor in Seattle, Washington, on the west side of the US. And his family, when he was in high school, his parents sailed off to go sail around the world. But in the meantime, they just lived on the boat. But other than that, I never met anyone who actually just, did this. It's so brave, isn't it? Wait, so how long was it start to finish?
We took about a year to get, we ended up in South Africa at the end of the year. So each country we went to, we would stop for about a month, which is usually how long you can get a visa for. And sometimes we would actually leave the boat in port and travel. Like in Sri Lanka, we traveled up into the highlands of Sri Lanka. So I feel like there's a lot more material for another book.
Yeah, there's a lot more material. Am I the only one who's thinking of, maybe you sail up to the deserted island and then one of the other ships that sails up, maybe those people aren't so nice. Maybe it becomes a murder mystery island. Oh my God, Rose, this is amazing. Wow, that's so brave. I would not be able to do that. I would be so, I don't know, just out to sea. It sounds so scary, I guess, that long and that far out from the shore. I mean, to go from New Zealand to South Africa, that's a lot. Wow.
The thing is that if you just came to a city for the first time in your life, you would probably be terrified crossing the road. So a lot of it is about understanding the risks and figuring out how we can mitigate the risks. But the difference is that there are no emergency services in the middle of the ocean. It's just you and your family. And there is a community, the other boats that we would meet en route. Luckily, they were all really nice people. And that's what inspired me to write this whole, this cynical character who thinks that the other yachties are too nice for their own good. Actually, that's why I had to write in the acknowledgements that you're actually, the yachting community is amazing and they're really beautiful people and they're really, really clever, resourceful people, because you have to be. You are just so reliant on yourselves.
I mean, because if you fall and break your arm, you'd have to sail, to a hospital, but maybe you're days away from a hospital.
Yeah, we did hear about someone sailing for 3 days with a broken ankle after he was playing volleyball on the island that we visited. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's what's scary. And then the bone, like, yikes. Oh my gosh. Or yeah. Well, Andrea saying, what an awesome trip you had. Maybe that will give you experience for several books. Absolutely. Several and more than several. Welcome, Bruce. Welcome, Charlotte. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. If anybody, I'm just making sure I don't miss anybody's questions. I'm monitoring here on my second screen. If I missed you, feel free to type it again. Nancy, Mara, Pat, welcome. Carol, so good to have you here. Everybody, it's wonderful to have you here. I just want to make sure I don't miss any of your questions because this is such a juicy conversation. Absolutely love having you here. Rose. So thank you so much for joining us. Raquel, Anne, welcome, welcome. So tell us, what do you want people to leave this book having felt, having experienced the lesson learned? What do you want them to walk away with?
I think a lot of people come away from this book having thought about imposter syndrome, which sort of comes up in two ways in this book. There's the literal idea of being an imposter, of being somebody else, but there's also the popular meaning of the word imposter syndrome, which is where we look at other people's outwardly successful lives and we compare what we see on the outside with our own lives and our inner doubts and our insecurities, and the fact that we still remember the worst thing that we ever did when we were a teenager, but we don't know about the worst thing other people did because they don't tell us. And I think that the journey that Iris goes through in the book is about discovering that you really need to have faith in yourself and stop comparing yourself with other people. So a friend of mine said that, you know, even though she doesn't have an identical twin or a sister, she just felt that everybody has someone in their life who they compare themselves to far more than they should, and that maybe this book is about letting that go. So I think that's where I started from, and the fact that it's a thriller kind of snuck in there unexpectedly.
I love that. And it's so important. I'm reading so many studies. I've read so many studies and so many articles about how, exactly you said, the comparison makes us all feel real bad. Like makes us feel like everyone else is just perfect and having these great vacations and these great experiences and these perfect marriages and these beautiful, healthy, perfect kids. And, you know, and then this success happened and that success happened, and it can really start to feel like, you know, nothing happens for me and, you know, I'm a loser or whatever. And, yeah, so I think that this is such an important topic to address. And actually, I was hearing an interview on NPR, National Public Radio, here in the U.S., Rose, where they were saying that they actually had people scroll through other people's social media, and everyone is watching. You've got to try this because I tried it and it's crazy. So you scroll through other people's, you know, social, which is what we do every day. So you don't even skip that step. You know how that makes you feel. Then go to your page and just go through your posts for 15 minutes and look at your own highlight reel and then see how you feel. And in the study, everyone who did it boosted themselves up just by looking at their own because you're looking at your own greatest memories instead of just everyone else's greatest memories. And all of a sudden you start to think, I am pretty great. So everybody go try that after you finish this interview because it's really kind of crazy and cool. Andrea, I would like to know, what are you reading?
Yeah, so I've been reading the books of some of the authors who have endorsed me, because I didn't even really realize I was writing a thriller, and I was not a big thriller reader. So then when I started to discover that these amazing authors had written endorsements of my books, I thought, well, these books are meant to be similar to mine, so I'll go and read them. So I read The Last Mrs. Parish by Liv Constantine. I was particularly interested because Liv Constantine is a pseudonym for a pair of sisters who write together. And I'd seen a lot of people say that it had a similar premise. So I absolutely loved that book. And I was thinking, oh, I wish I'd thought of that idea. But some people say The Girl in the Mirror is like The Last Mrs. Parish with sisters instead of friends. And I've also been reading Amy Malloy's book, Goodnight Beautiful, which came out a week ago. And that's a really interesting read. The twists totally got me, all of them. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Excellent. I love hearing that. And again, we've had so many of them on the show, and it's so cool to see what a small, wonderful world it is. I just want to see if anyone has any last questions for Rose. Just go ahead and drop them in the chat box. And Rose, what is some writing advice that you'd like to share with all of us?
Well, when people ask me this, I usually say what I've already said about writer's block, which is that you just have to keep writing. So I guess my advice would be to just write really regularly and set aside time for writing. So I heard one of New Zealand's top children's authors interviewed on the radio when I was just starting, and she said, give your best time to writing. And she had also raised 4 children and written a huge number of children's books, picture books, and all sorts of children's books. And that was really life-changing for me, because that was when I decided, right, it's going to be early in the morning, because I really am a morning person. My brain will be fresh, and I'm not going to write when I'm tired.
Yes. Oh, I love that, because I think so often for so many of us, not just writing, but like everything, we give our best time to everybody else and everything else, and then we think, oh, and when I get all that done, I'll do the thing for me. But you're so right. We have to give ourselves that best time. Ah, I love that.
The rest of my day flow so well, even though, I mean, the kids were getting 20-minute dinners whenever I could, because that was, I didn't have a lot of spare time, but it does make the rest of your day feel different when you're walking lightly because you've already done something special.
Oh, when you're walking lightly, when you've already done something special. Oh my gosh, I love that. Oh my gosh, what a perfect note to end on. Rose Carlyle, what a pleasure to have you here on a mystery author series with our Mighty Mystery fans. Again, everyone, Rose Carlyle, the girl in the mirror, joining us all the way from New Zealand, sharing all of her real life adventures and on the page adventures. You can buy this book today through our very special partnership with bookshop.org, which supports independent bookstores. I want to thank my partner in crime, again, my friend and fellow author, Margaret Pinard, who is producing things, managing things over on Facebook. You're amazing, Margaret. Thank you so much. Rose, thank you so much for coming on today, and we can't wait to have you back when your next book comes out.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.